Rebbe was older, and Marcus Aurelius, the Gemara says, used to visit him. Imagine that. The Roman emperor used to visit Rebbe when he was in Tiberias. So Rebbe was much older, or they both were old, obviously. And what happened was Rebbe had a hard time climbing into his bed. You get old, it's hard to move around, whatever. Mobility suffers. What can I say? In any case, so he had a hard time getting into his bed. So Marcus Aurelius was talking to Rebbe then. So Rebbe didn't feel well, whatever. He didn't feel well. So he wanted to lie in bed while he was talking to the Emperor of Rome. And he was the Emperor of Rome, by the way. So Marcus Aurelius says, look, you're going to have a hard time getting to your bed. I'll do you a favor. I'm going to bend down on all fours. You put your foot on top of my back, right? Use me as a stool, as a step stool to get into your bed. This is the Roman emperor. So Rebbe says, is this proper to use the Emperor of Rome as a footstool? That's what he says to Marcus Aurelius. So Marcus Aurelius says to him, Alavai, I should be your footstool in the coming world. And it's incredible. So we see the tremendous relationship. That it's not only that they were tremendous people. Rebbe was one of the greatest of the sages of the Jewish people. And Marcus Aurelius is the Emperor of Rome, a descendant of Esav. So can you imagine this kind of relationship? And that's very important. So how does the Rebbeinu Shalom reward Marcus Aurelius? Think about that. What the reward of this person, right, who preserved the life, right? And here's where we begin to understand what happens. So we now know that at the end of time, right, that Esav, aka also known as Edom, aka also known as Rome, right, aka also known as Western civilization, right? And we know who Western civilization is. It's Russia, Europe, and America, all right? We now know this, very interesting. And I clearly believe that what the Rebbeinu Shalom did to Marcus Aurelius says, because what you did was so outstanding, that the Torah of the Jewish people is dependent on you. Talk about, enlisting Esav and his descendants. I will reincarnate you at the end of time, and you will be the person that Esav does tshuva, and you will help my people do the tikkun before Mashiach comes, but to bring the Mashiach, you see. But what is important is not only that, okay, but what is the job of Esav at the end of time? Kfir Sarah, just like the original partnership with Yaakov Avinu. The job of this person, whoever he's going to be, at the end of time, was Esav doing tshuva. So he's a Gilgal. He's a reincarnation of Esav, who is a Gilgal, a reincarnation of Marcus Aurelius. And who's the one who's got that spot, that spotlight, right? Right now, Donald Trump, right? That's how we have to begin to understand who Donald Trump is, right? To show you that in many ways it's Marcus Aurelius that has been granted the unbelievable privilege to help the Jewish people. But it's more than that, you see, because Esav has become the Rash of Esav, the evil of Esav, because there's a part of Esav that is unbelievably evil, which is what Esav was. And there's what's called the Tov Sheba Esav, the good part of Esav that is doing tshuva. And Donald Trump is the Tov Sheba Esav. Now, I'm not commenting on his character. I'm just telling you basically, I don't want to get into his whole character and so on, not now anyway. But anyway, that Trump is, as far as I'm concerned, is a Gilgal of Marcus Aurelius, which is a Gilgal of Esav, which fulfills the prophecy of Rav Yavoy Tzoyer because of their incredible former relationship and what Marcus Aurelius did for the Torah. Can we imagine a goy saved Torah Shabbat Peh for the Jews? How do we even begin to understand what that? We're talking about all the Jews, Torah, the whole Torah Shabbat Peh. It's not fathomable what the reward of that is for this guy, right? So that reward, what I see, is Trump. He's the one who's chosen to help the Jews do the tikkun, and not only that, but the real job of Esav is to fight the nations. Because that's the real job of Esav, remember. He's an Ish Sodeh. He's a man of the field, isn't he? He goes into the field and he withstands all the temptations, right? And he destroys the Goyim. That's his job. That was his original job. And that's exactly what Trump has been doing. He is contending with all the nations of the world, the UN. I mean, it's astounding what the guy's been doing. The Arabs, the UN, Europe, Western Europe, Mexico, Russia. It's incredible what this guy's been doing in his first term as president, you see. So that, what I just told you, is a very important piece of the puzzle, you see, and so on, And look what he did. You should know, Yishmael, the Arabs are at the brink of reverting back to the Jewish people in the sense of peace. He's the one who initiated the Abraham Accords. That's unheard of. Trump should have gotten the Nobel Peace Prize. Nobody ever did that. Over 100 years, nobody ever made peace between the Arabs. I mean, this is one of the greatest political coup ever known. And he got nothing. Why? Because he is now the greatest threat, that is Trump, to the Satan. What you are witnessing is satanic, right? That's the origin of Trump derangement syndrome. You see, that's really what it's all about. Because if Trump helps the Jews do the tikkun, then the Satan dies. And he knows that. So he is turning anybody that wants to listen, and believe me, it's a lot of people, and so on, against Trump. It's satanic. You don't realize, because what is happening to Trump is unheard of in American history. Like, hey, you don't like the guy? Okay. But he was a very good president. Anybody that's honest sees that. What do you hate the guy for? Usually if you don't like a guy, you don't like his policies, right? But they hate. It's a gut hatred. That's what you see. This is not normal. It's psychotic. Because it's not justified in reality. When you really think about that, okay, you disagree with his policies or you don't like his character, he tweets too much, fine. But the hatred that people bear for Trump is lo ya'uman. It's not believable. It's just incredible. Why? Well, what explains this irrational behavior, psychotic behavior? And the answer is Satan. It's satanic, because the repercussions of Trump becoming president and helping the Jews, especially helping the Jews make peace with the Arabs, and Trump denies and defies the UN, the Arabs, right? The whole world he defies, you see, is the greatest danger to the Satan. So we're looking at an unbelievable spiritual dilemma that the Satan has. That's what's going on. You see, and that's his job, is Kfir Sarah. The original job of Esav is to fight the Tumah, what's called in Kabbalah the Klippa, the evil of Esav, right? And that's why we're witnessing things we've never seen before. It's absolutely irrational, and you could see the divine blessing. I mean, you think about that, as I will point out, how in the world does Trump survive this, and so on, which I will point out. But there's a problem, always a problem. Because you'll notice many people that are destined for greatness must be cleaned up. They have to be cleaned up, you see. Trump is going through this incredible humiliation, suffering, anxiety, although he doesn't look anxious, and so on. Why is he going through this? This never happened to a president. It hardly ever happened to a human, if you think about that. The entire United States government is arrayed against one man. You're talking about the FBI, the CIA, the IRS, Secret Service. It's incredible. They all hate this man, the intelligence services, right? And not only that, it's all the colleges, the anti-Semitism from all the eruptions against Trump and so on. And I'm not even going into the anti-Semitism and so on. So how do we explain the entire government is after one guy? Right, because that's the evil of Esav, right? Against the good part of Esav. Why? So how do we begin to understand that? So what God is doing, which is interesting, and he's done this to many people, whoever is destined for greatness, believe it or not, will go through tremendous suffering before he becomes great. And there's a lot of reasons for that. For instance, let's say Avraham Avinu. Before God could visit Avraham Avinu, he had to be tremendously suffer on the Nimrod. He threw him into a Kibshan Eish. He threw him into a furnace of fire. And who knows what other difficulties that Nimrod put Avraham Avinu through. Right? Look at the difficulty. He has to cleanse Avraham Avinu for whatever. And there are reasons for that. And then you have Yosef HaTzadik, 13 years in an Egyptian prison. And believe me, that was no picnic, you know. A prison today is a palace considered to the prison of Egypt in those days, right? And he had to, Yosef had to be in prison for 13 years, right? And a slave and indictments for being with Potiphar's wife and so on. It's incredible. And finally, what happened to Avram, we know. What happened to Yosef? Became the Grand Vizier of Egypt, right? Then the Jewish people, they had to go through Egypt for 210 years and suffer terribly, right? Again. And what happened in the end? They became the nation of God and so on, the greatest nation of all in history and so on. And even Moshe Rabbeinu, right? He was chased out of Egypt because he was accused of murder, right? And he was gone 54 years. He didn't see a Jew in 54 years, you know? It's incredible. Before he could be given the greatness of being the greatest Navi and the giver of the Torah. So we see, and this goes on and on. Well, my belief is Trump is eventually going to come back, right? As Esav doing tshuva, you see? So he has to be cleaned up. When you see the tremendously divine assistance, you know, when you take a look at this person and so on, you know, he's 77 years old. Where does he get the energy to run around the United States? He's 77 years old. It qualifies as an old man. Forget about Medicare, right? And Social Security, right? What is it about? You compare him to Biden. Biden looks like a cripple compared to Trump and so on. Yet he seems to have energy which is boundless, you know, and he stands in front of a crowd of 100,000 people in New Jersey, right? And he talks for an hour and a half, 2 hours. You know how much energy it takes to do that? And that's after he's been in court the whole day sitting, right? And that's just beyond belief. You show me one guy that can do that, you know? And this is a guy who's subject to every vile attempt to destroy him, you know? And it's amazing. A guy like this should have had 5 heart attacks already in terms of the anxiety and the stress. Could you imagine what stress he's under? That every day he's got the whole U.S. government arrayed against him? I guarantee you nobody would survive. Nobody. Who could stand that? The fear and the stress. And he doesn't even seem to be afraid. He has no health issues, as far as I know, right? How's a guy like that walk around with no health issues? It's absolutely incredible, you know? Where's, like I say, the energy and the stamina? You don't think this is divine? You show me one guy that can replicate that type of behavior. It's impossible. Yet he does. He just seems to be impervious to danger and threat. It's just incredible. Why, or I should say how? That's the Rebbeinu Shalom. Because God has to keep him healthy to be able to do the job that he's destined to do. To me, that's one of the greatest indications that he has an incredible mission. And therefore, he has to suffer, you see, and so on, you know. Why is God doing this to him, suffering? Like I say, first idea is he has to atone. Look, Trump did a lot of things which are wrong and so on. No man is perfect. So before achieving that kind of greatness, I believe he has to have a kapara, atone. This suffering is an atonement. Not only that, we know Trump has a large ego, to say the least. God wants to humble him. He says, look, you know, before you can take up my mission, you got to become a humble person. You know, I'm going to show you that really you're a nobody. And if not for my incredible assistance and grace, you'd be dead. So what God is doing is actually humbling Trump, right? Then another idea. God wants Trump to destroy the Democratic Party. Right. How? Because he's got to get Trump so infuriated at what they're doing to him. I mean, the injustice beyond belief. God is infuriating Trump to destroy the evil people, the Democratic Party, Biden, and all the people that try to destroy him, you see. So he's infuriating him, making sure. Now, I want to tell you something. It's not a matter of revenge. People don't understand. Trump must remove these people, the establishment or the swamp, right? Or the deep state. Why? Because you don't realize something, or maybe you do. They're not going to stop. Even if Trump wins the election, they're still going to try to destroy Trump in any way they can. they are going to infiltrate, you see, in order to destroy him. You see, they'll impeach him again. You see, because they have members of Congress and the Senate who are part of them. You know, it's astounding. He was president for 4 years, and they impeached him twice. That alone is a distinction in American history. Impeached twice for what? For a phone call? I mean, you laugh at what they impeached him for, right? Because they have to destroy him. Because it's like they see him as their mortal, as their innate enemy. You see, so they're going to try to destroy him just because he won. That's what they did the first time. So how do you protect yourself? You need to destroy them. You need to go after each one of these people because all of them are guilty of felonies, real felonies, not the sham that has been made up in the court now with this guy Marsham and so on, you know, real felonies, and he could take them all out. But what he needs is a great DOJ, Department of Justice, a DA. That's what he needs. Somebody who will really go after the whole Democratic Party and get rid of the top echelon. Because not everybody in the Democratic Party is evil, but the top echelon is terrible, and so on, you see. So that's why he has to take him out. Not for revenge, because they will continue to try to destroy him. And he has to be very careful. Trump made a tremendous mistake. He failed to understand the depth of resolve of evil, how bad they are, and what they are going to resort to kill him, you know. In fact, maybe if it wasn't for the Secret Service, they would assassinate him and so on. But I believe that, of course, will never happen because God is protecting him for obvious. We see that he is and so on, you know. So that's why it has nothing to do. Those people who say revenge, they don't know what they're talking about. And which is interesting. Do you have any idea what they stopped him from doing because of the impeachments? Every other day he was caught up in court or some committee to investigate him and so on. You see, what he could have done for America, another 10 times more if he would have been so tied up in court and in, you know, judicial committees and so on, you see. And now, of course, this particular, what has been happening now and so on, you know. I mean, this court case is one of the greatest injustices that I've ever seen. I mean, there's a famous lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, that has said, he's a famous lawyer, constitutional lawyer, criminal lawyer and so on, that in all 60 years of practicing law, Dershowitz says, he has never seen such what's called an ivus hadin. He has never seen such an obviously corruption of justice by this judge, Marsham and so on, you know. I mean, this is Dershowitz and so on. I mean, he's shocked, and he's right. The evil of this jury, this prosecutor, and this judge, we cannot even begin to describe. And I'll tell you why, what really, and this is something which is very important to consider. There are two things that God hates. Not only hates it, two sins. Not only does God hate it, but he will destroy civilization if it goes beyond a certain threshold. What are they? They are immorality, that's one, as exhibited by LGBTQ, and they are the corruption of justice. Why? Because that's the end of civilization, and God will not allow civilization to disappear or to die. Where do we see this? The Mabul, the people of the flood, right? What was their sin? So the Torah writes, Hamas, they had tremendous amount of what? Hamas, corruption. It was a tremendous distortion, deviation, or injustice that they practice, right? And the second thing where you see from the Medrash that what it says there, that God sealed the fate of the generation of the flood. Why? So it says there, what sealed their fate is that the fact that if a guy would want to marry an animal or a man would want to marry a man, he would have to write a ksuba, right? A marriage document, right? Spelling out his responsibilities. And this was sanctioned by the government because he would have to write out a document which was enforceable in court. Did you believe this? The two very sins that can destroy civilization. That's exactly what the generation of the flood was engaged with. So what did God do? He destroyed the world. Do you have any idea what kind of a sin it has to be for God to want to destroy the world? That's like, is there any punishment greater than that? Of course not. And the second place that did this is Sodom. Sodom was an unbelievably evil place. Justice. somebody robbed you, then the victim, he had to pay the robber. Why? What was the logic? Because if you didn't have that possession, the guy could never have stolen from you. Therefore, you're guilty. Excuse me. Are we in an Alice in Wonderland land? And that's exactly what they did. Talk about injustice and a mockery of justice. Talk about that, right? And also there's Mishkav Zachar all over the place. God destroyed Sodom in an unnatural way. It wasn't like there was some volcano in Israel and so on. He turned it over with fire and brimstone. It was completely unnatural. Why? Because they want to destroy civilization. You want to be unnatural? Guess what? I will kill you in an unnatural way. Measure for measure. Take a look at this world, what America has become. And it's not only America. America sealed its fate. See, we don't realize something, and I'll tell you something very interesting. It's not Trump that's on trial. America's on trial. Because America already is bad news, a rogue nation, because they have condoned and encouraged LGBTQ, which is automatically one of the things that God brought the flood for, right? And they've already done that. America is now totally subject to unbelievable sexual deviation. It's incredibly corrupt, and it's going to get much worse, right? So the last thing God was waiting for is, what about justice? Ivus Adin, right? Well, guess what? America, true to form, has now lived up to that, because what they did is one of the greatest corruptions of justice ever seen, like Dershowitz said, which is incredible. This is what they've done, and so on. I mean, think about this. I'll just review just a couple of ideas, right? You know, the concept, you convict a former president based on what? Based on falsifying business records? Is anybody else convicted for that? You pay a fine or whatever. This is what you convict a guy on? And not only that, there was exculpatory evidence that the Bragg refused to even hear or present to the grand jury and so on, you know. And then there were witnesses that were denied the ability to be a witness. And they testified, no, this is not what happened. And then there's a witness, I think his name is Brad Smith, right? He said it's not even a crime. And he's the head of the Federal Bureau or Election Committee and so on. He knows the laws better than anybody else. He was refused, basically. You know, nobody wanted to listen to him and so on. It was just incredible to watch, you know. And not only that, the judge should have recused himself. How in the world can you take a case when your daughter's making millions of dollars on a guilty verdict? It is forbidden to be a judge. I mean, you look at what Chazal, right? His daughter is a fundraiser for the Democratic Party. And she's making, won't she make $93 million or something like that? Of course he's going to say, and he lives with his daughter or something like that, right? Of course he's got to rule in favor of his daughter, or there goes millions of dollars. You have any idea what kind of bribery that is, or what kind of self-interest? Not only, how could you hold a court like that in New York City? 85% of New York voted. They voted for Biden. New York is the worst place for a Republican or Trump to have a case. It is forbidden to be judged in New York. I mean, where's justice? You know, but that's, you know, so look how much stuff was done and so on, you know. Witnesses denied. And then there was finally one witness, I think his name is Weisselberg. He was the main could have been the main witness that would have exonerated Trump, because he was the CFO and so on. He was not permitted to testify, and he would have testified. Trump doesn't even know about this. You see, and not only that, you know, you have a witness giving testimony, what's called exculpatory, which is exonerates him. So not only is he not accepted, so what witness do they accept? Somebody that is convicted of perjury over and over again, right? Michael Cohen. So the jury listens to Cohen instead of Costello? It's beyond belief. How do you listen to it's forbidden to do that. The man is a convicted perjurer, right? Liar. Over and over. In fact, he sat in jail for that. Over and over again. So what credibility is there? Where's justice? On the contrary, you know, when you look at Chazal, the Sanhedrin used to go out of their way to try to exonerate a person, not to make sure that he's found guilty, you know. It's beyond belief what America did. And I'll tell you the worst thing America did, like I just said, God hates injustice. In fact, it says in Pirkei Avos, Perek Pasuk Yud Aleph 11, right? That Ivas Adin produces a punishment of cherev, a sword, military. That means there will be something military that will be incredible, harmful to America. I think it may be, hopefully not, it may be another 9/11. That's the cherev that America may now witness, because that's what Pirkei Avos says, that Ivas Hadin brings cherev and so on, But what they have done is made a mockery of justice. America used to be the model, at least partially, of righteousness. They were decent, And now America's the laughing stock of the world. Not only so, America can't even tell another nation that's a banana republic, you can't do this. America has lost the high ground of morality. That's what's happened with America. How do they do that? Do they have any idea that the rage that Kaviyachol, so to speak, that God is in for what America has done? Not just for America, where everybody now laughs at courts. The whole DOJ, the whole court system is a mockery. You have an idea what that means? Mankind cannot survive when everybody's laughing at justice, which, by the way, is one of the 7 Noahide laws, courts, justice, and so on. How do you think God looks at this? Do they have even a shred of understanding what God is going to do to them when they stand in front of Him for judgment? That they made a mockery not only all over America, where America now realizes a 2-tier system, and the whole thing was it was so obvious that all of this is unjust. How do you do this kind of thing? As I pointed out, only a couple. You speak to any lawyer, they can't believe what just transpired. But the whole world laughs at America, and they laugh at justice. You can't do that and get away with it. They have no idea. And I repeat, and I said this in the last year. You want to know what God is going to do to those people who have just desecrated the name of God and His laws? That's what it is. They have made God look like a fool. What do they think God is going to do? And I mentioned the punishment, how severe it is, what's going to happen. And you know what's going to happen? Yeshayahu sees God prophetically. He's coming, and his garments on a horse, and his garments are all red, so which means they're covered in blood. God's garments are covered in blood. So Yeshayahu is afraid, and he says, this is not good, because he thinks God is coming to judge the Jews, because that's what the symbol is, you see. So God says to Isaiah, this is in Parshat Nitzavim, by the way, which was the Haftarah for 9/11, for those who don't know. In any case, so God says to Isaiah, Yeshayahu, says, no, this is not for the Jews. You're wondering why my clothing is red? Because I have just stepped on Esav. I stepped on them, and I squashed them. You see, like a grape producer that wants to produce wine from grapes. So he puts it in a big vat, and guess what? He goes into the vat, cleans his feet, I hope, right? And squashes the grapes, and all the juice spurts out. Well, guess what? I just did that to Esav. I stepped into the vat on top of Esav, and I squashed him. So his blood squirts all over the place, and it squirted on my garments. You have any idea what that kind of description is? It's unbelievable. This is what God did. Yes, this is the punishment of Esav, the evil of Esav. You see, the question is, how is that possible? And you're looking at it. You're not only looking at LGBTQ, which is the distortion of nature and so on, which will destroy civilization, right? But you're looking at the injustice of what has just happened, you see, to Trump and many other people that have supported Trump. And this, you should know one thing, it's not just Trump. We have no idea of the prosecutorial excess, outrage that is practiced in this country. We don't know, but there are many books written that talk about the prosecutorial overreach, how prosecutors have enormous power, you see. And some guy just wrote a book, I forgot the name of it, where he demonstrates that many justices are they don't practice justice. They're either very angry, so they convict the guy, or for whatever motive they have. But they're all biased. You see, what do you mean? How could you do that? God is so tzedek tirdov, right? Justice righteousness, righteousness, you shall pursue. Right? You're not allowed to do this. So people should see that the whole judicial system, from the judges to the prosecutors, you see, who gets tried, who doesn't get tried, should exhibit this type of unbelievable, immoral, and criminal behavior is beyond belief. And that's why God squashes Esav. But who's he going to squash? The Democratic Party. You have no idea what they've done to America. The history of the Democratic Party that supported slavery. I didn't want to go into what these people have done, but they are responsible for incredible amount of evil in the United States. And you see, and it's not just the Democratic Party. You're looking at the government. This government has no idea what they're going to get because they are the government, the Senate and the House. Each one of them has a responsibility to practice righteousness and fairness and justice. Right? Is that what they do? They don't. One of the lowest ratings in the history is the government. It's terrible what their rating is, what their belief, what people hold them in contempt, and so on. And you see why. Because they do nothing, right? What do you mean? You have an idea that this will make you guilty in the eyes of God to be a senator and do nothing? You are responsible to govern righteous. They don't know. Quit. It's better not to be in the Senate or the House rather than stand in front of God and God looks at you and say, what did you do? Why did you do this? Where were you? It's true that you're part of a body, so you need a lot of votes and so on, but you did nothing. Where were you when all this criminal behavior, it's incredible to watch the cities across America. The crime is beyond belief. You can't walk in the subway anymore. You can't walk in a city anymore. You'd be mugged or punched in the face or whatever. Everybody's afraid to walk in the cities. So the question is, well, who's responsible? And the answer is the mayors and the governors. Do they have any idea what God is going to do to them when he says to them, where were you? And the DAs, you don't even want to be 100 miles next to a DA when he's standing judgment in front of God, because they have made a mockery of justice and nobody does anything. Look, I can go on and on for hours with this stuff, but if you want to know what's going to happen to them, remember the prophecy of Isaiah, right? They are going to be squirted like a grape man, right? Who wants to make grapes, and their blood is going to spurt right on the clothing of God. And it's not me saying this, right? It's Isaiah. I'm just repeating a Navi, So people have to wake up. The DAs have to wake up. They have no idea what's going to happen to them. In any case, this is what is happening, and because they have made an incredible mockery of justice, you see. Anyway, to review, I believe that's why we now understand incredible ideas, who Esav really is, that Esav became a Rasha, that in the end of time, the nevuah, the prophecy, is that he will do tshuva, because he wanted to do tshuva, right? And Rashi's comment on the perfect relationship by Shnei Goyim B'Vidnech, two great nations, was Antoninus, Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, and Rebbe, and what the relationship between these two, right? And it wasn't that Marcus Aurelius was a good friend of Rebbe. He saved Torah, right? Without him, Rebbe could never have written the Mishnah, which is incredible, you see. And he saved Rebbe's life. We have no idea what God considers that, you see. So I believe, very simply, that God said, you will be incarnated again, and you will be the Esav that does tshuva. I think that makes unbelievable sense. And if anything, Trump doing tshuva is not even enough to reward Marcus Aurelius for saving the Jewish people, you see. And that's why I believe he's zoicha to be Esav doing tshuva, and more important, to help the Jews do the tikkun, right? And that's why we read about the Medrash that Esav is in Gan Eden, right? And the wonder, of course, is how in the world did he get to Gan Eden? Because that's what it is, and so on. But anyway, so this is and therefore Trump, because of that privilege, is subject terrible suffering, just like many great people that are about to enter a tremendous station will suffer for the reasons that I said, And in one way it's unfortunate, but the reward is incredible. It's like Yosef HaTzadik. It's true he was a prisoner for 13 years in an Egyptian prison, which is obviously terrible. But think about that. He was the Grand Vizier. It doesn't make any sense. Think about this, right? Just because Yosef offered some advice to Paroi of how to deal with a famine, okay, so you know what you do? You write out a check and you give him a consultant fee. Because that's all he did. He advised Paroi. Basically, but Paroi didn't do that. He made him Grand Vizier. And like Paroi said, only I will be greater than you. Excuse me, for what? Every president or pharaoh has advisors. You don't make the guy the Grand Vizier right up to Paroi. So why did he do it? Because he had no choice. Because Yosef paid his dues, right? By suffering and so on, and being humiliated. Can you imagine what it is being in a prison for 13 years with no hope of being saved at all, and so on, and the humiliation with Fatifa's wife and so on, right? Whatever reason why God wanted to do that, to humble him, we have no idea why that happened. But in the end, so for the next 80 years, or 90 years, whatever, he lived to 110, right? So for the next, and he was a Grand Vizier at 30, so for the next 80 years, he was the Grand Vizier of Egypt, which is incredible. I believe that's exactly what's happening to Trump. And so therefore what I would tell Trump, if I could, be brave, don't worry. Everything in the end will turn out extraordinary, because you have been given, hopefully, a tremendous merit that you can help the Jewish people come back to God, come back to their Torah, come back to their religion, and not only that, and then eventually, change the entire world to become righteous. Thank you.